Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojan Huddle. We're going to talk about the Wisconsin win, talk about where we are so far in the season, talk a little bit about Minnesota and what's coming up, and who knows, we may even talk about some other things. Maybe we'll talk about Lane Kiffin. That might be fun. Who knows? All right. Usual crew, you guys know who they are. Mark Culkin, Eric McKinney. I'm Chris Arledge. Okay, guys. USC now has a Big Ten victory. Eight Heismans and 11 national titles, and now one Big Ten victory. That was the missing hole. That was the missing hole in the trophy case. It's done. So let's start with this. What's the most important thing we learned from that Wisconsin game? Mark, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I think that for as flawed as this team is, and I'm speaking specifically about the offensive line, and I think the other thing that's kind of showed up now through 4 games is their lack of explosive playability on that side of the ball as well. We know they have it, they just haven't really displayed it. So those are the couple of things, I guess, on the negative side that I learned from that game. But on the positive side, and I think this is something that's much more important to focus on. This team just doesn't quit. They don't know that word. It's not part of their vocabulary. The coaching staff makes some great second half adjustments. I mean, it's almost kind of reminds you of those Pete Carroll years sometimes, where the team's not playing well, and all of a sudden you know they're going to come out in the second half, or they're going to flip that switch. They're going to look good, and they're going to get the job done. They're doing that. I mean, when you're trailing 21-10 at halftime, and it probably could have been worse than that, to come back in that second half and pitch a 28-0 shutout. I don't know. I know Eric will have all the stats and everything as far as yards given up, yada, yada, yada. But it was a tale of two halves. I mean, they looked like a completely different team in that second half. And that was, I think, the biggest thing that I learned. This team still has some issues they're trying to develop, get better at. But even when they're down, I don't think anybody should expect this team just to kind of curl up in the fetal position and play for the next game. They're going to continue playing all the way to the end. And even when the backups get in, they didn't want to give up those points when they gave up that long kickoff return at the end of the game. They were playing. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I've noticed throughout the year, not just coming out of this Wisconsin game. The new coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball has infused something into that locker room's culture, and it's transcended to both sides of the ball.
Yeah. Eric, what do you think? Are you going to have a bunch of stats? Mark promised a bunch of stats.
I was going to say, now I got to rattle off all these stats that Mark had. So what Mark said is true. I think we learned that all the way back against LSU. It's always good to be reminded, right? Every game you want to see it. And so that definitely showed up again here. My very specific thing, I think, that we learned in this game is that USC now believes what we've believed for the whole time, which is throw it up to Jacoby and you're going to be okay 9 times out of 10. And so it was good. It was really good to see, hey, let's go let those guys make a play. Maybe it doesn't have to be perfect off the line. Maybe they don't have to be wide open. He went up and got a couple. Deuce Robinson went up and got a couple. And knowing that, that's going to be a threat week in and week out where, hey, we need to get bailed out on this play. Let's go. Let's throw it up there and let those guys make plays where you don't have to be exactly right 5-on-5 with the offensive line against rushers. You don't have to be right 11-on-11 everywhere. You got to get a decent throw and you got to let those guys make a play. You can't do that on every single play, but letting those guys make plays here and there, especially give them a shot every time you're in the red zone. That was a very good thing to see and to know that, okay, SC's going to give those guys a shot in some of these games.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I mean, the defensive adjustments are real, and it does feel very much like a Pete Carroll defensive team. Maybe not frontline NFL talent all over the place like a lot of his defensive teams had, but with Pete, if somebody found success early, he would take that away and he would force them to do something different. And very seldom did you have two things that could work against USC. You take away what the other team is good at, and you make them fight to score points, and they're going to have a hard time. And that's what USC is doing now. They're it's a pretty good tackling team, which is really nice to be able to say. It's a team that doesn't often make fundamental errors. There was one on the first series of the game, but they keep contained. They line up right for the most part, right? I mean, these are all fundamental things that you have to do to be a good defense. The defense is real. This is not an overwhelming defense. It's not 2008. They're not going to just walk out and just destroy you with their athleticism like that defense could. But it's a good group, and it's there are enough games now, both this year and last, to know that this is how Lynn's defenses operate. And there's a good article in the LA Times maybe that had all the stats that Eric didn't give us, but they were this is something that has been the case with Lynn all last year at UCLA and all 4 games this year. So we know that. On offense, I don't know if we learned this from the Wisconsin game, but I think it's pretty much set in stone at this point. Everything's hard for the offense, right? There's not a lot of easy stuff. And the offense wasn't bad against Wisconsin. They had a reasonable number of yards. They had a reasonable number of rushing yards. They had a reasonable per carry average in the run game. But everything's hard. And, you're throwing the ball up so Jacoby Lane and Deuce Robinson can make plays on the ball against smaller defensive backs. And that's smart. You don't have a lot of guys running wide open. You're not breaking a lot of long runs. You got to fight and scrap for every point. And I think that's just the way it's going to be this year. And you can have a really good football team and do that. But it sure is nice to have some easy ones. And the last 2 years, as bad as USC played on the defensive side of the ball, the nice thing was offensively, it seemed that almost every week there was just easy stuff, right? Guys wide open, Caleb Williams runs around and finds them and makes easy plays. There's not a lot of that right now. So I guess now that I say all that, I'm not sure I learned anything from the Wisconsin game other than it confirmed stuff that I thought I already knew. And once again, this is a team that plays hard, especially defensively throughout. And that Wisconsin team isn't going to win a national title, but those guys are all right, right? That's a real football team. USC has played 3 real football teams in 4 games. Not very many teams in the country can say that. And so while you look at the numbers right now, and defensively USC is around number 30 in the main defensive categories, that's because there's so many teams that haven't played anybody with a pulse yet. If USC continues to give up a little over 300 yards and 17 points a game, they're going to be in the top 10 statistically in both those categories at the end of the year. So they're playing really well defensively, and I mean, it's hard to complain about that. We've been begging for that for years. Okay, so let's break it down then, offense, defense. Let's talk about the good first. What was good offensively? Eric, what'd you like?
I mean, I kind of hit on it in the first one. I liked the way Jacoby Lynn played, and the fact that now every single defensive coordinator has to circle him and say, we cannot get beat one-on-one consistently down the sideline against that guy. And I think that shifts a little bit what you have to do with safeties, opens up some other things. And so I think that was really good. Secondly, look, the offensive line wasn't great. The fact that you can take any sort of step forward, I think was good. What you said, what was good, not what was perfect, not what will get it done in every single game going forward. You put Amos Talalele at right guard, and I thought he played pretty well. Seemed to get nicked up a little bit, and they were rotating anyway with Alani Noah there. But looking for answers on the offensive line, and there was really only one play, and it's a little bit like giving up that touchdown pass at first. Like, yeah, it's one explosive play, but it's potentially game changing if it happens in a tighter game or against a better team. The sack fumble just can't happen on the offensive line. It's not super disguised. It looked like Elijah Page may have seen it like before the snap and was like alerting to it, and then it still happened. And so those are, it's like the Michigan runs, you know, hey, everything was good except these gigantic things that were absolutely horrible. But overall, the play, and it was a step down from Michigan to Wisconsin. But I think that's, if you get that kind of offensive line play, that back and forth, I think against everybody, you're going to have to do it better against Penn State, better against Notre Dame. There's teams out there. But it wasn't 2 weeks in a row where you're coming away saying, holy cow, that's a disaster. You can't win games with that kind of play on the offensive line. So judging on a curve, I'm going to take that as a good step for the offense.
Makes sense to me. Mark, what was good offensively?
So Miller Moss was really good offensively. Jacoby Lane was really good offensively. Deuce Robinson, when he was targeted, was pretty good offensively. Here's one of the stats that Eric, just for whatever reason, doesn't want to talk about. USC on third down was really, really, really good. They converted 13 out of 17 third down attempts on offense. That's going to get it done. And they were even better on fourth down, 2 for 2. So when you look at that and you consider, and we're talking about how, and I'm finger quoting right now, how poorly the offense played, they didn't, it was really in the first half, it was those making mistakes because they were moving the ball, but they would have a penalty or they would have a turnover. I mean, at the end of the game, they put up 469 yards of offense and 31 points on offense. You got the the additional 7 with Mason Cobb's pick 6. So there was a lot of good stuff, but they just kept shooting themselves in the foot, so to speak. But yeah, offensively, what was good, being able to convert when they had to convert, keep their drives alive. And I really love that Miller Moss to, I think Jacoby Lane's going to be his #1 target, but Miller Moss's touchdown run, that was sweet too. A little bit more of that, a little bit more keeping the ball on that RPO type of stuff, because everybody was fooled. I thought he handed the ball off. Next thing I know, he's doing the old spinaroo pirouette, throwing his body across the goal line. That was good. I love the tough son of a bitch that Miller Moss has displayed who he is.
Yeah, no, I agree on Miller, and I agree on that play. USC has not done enough to slow down that backside edge in the run game. They did a couple things Saturday. Miller Moss keeping it and running is one of them, and running that reverse to Zachariah Branch also is going to make people think. I think both of those are useful. I'd love to know if it was a read option or if they just told him to keep it. I don't know the answer to that. Look, the big receivers played like big receivers. Jacoby and Deuce both made plays. Those guys are mismatches against every corner that they're going to play, and so you need to start taking advantage of that. I don't want the offense to turn into just one 50-50 ball after another, but the reality is that if you're throwing 50-50 balls to those guys, they're probably not 50-50, and you need to take advantage of that. I'll give the running game, I'm not sure actually which category it goes in. It was okay. They stayed with it though, and I liked that. He didn't get away from it just because it wasn't always great. He stuck with it. And USC is going to have to stick with the running game. They cannot become a pass-only team because they can't protect the passer. So I think that was important too. And as Mark pointed out, if you have 469 yards offense and you're a combined 13 for 19 on 3rd and 4th down conversions, that's a pretty good day. It really is. That's a pretty good day. Those are really important numbers. So I feel good about that. All right. What was bad offensively? Go ahead, Mark. What was bad? You couldn't help yourself. You already started highlighting the bad when I was asking about the good.
Yeah, it's right now the offensive line is problematic. There's no other way to say it. Eric's alluded to it. You've talked about it. We've all talked about it. We're trying to, give them the benefit of the doubt that it's going to continue to get better. But right now, Elijah Page he's struggling at left tackle. That right guard spot, you don't want to be playing musical chairs. Is it going to be Alani Noah? Is it going to be Amos Talalele? Get it figured out. The offensive line is not a position group where you want to be rotating guys. It's just not. I don't care if you're doing it every other series or whatever the schedule they're trying to run. They got to get this figured out, because I think it's putting undue pressure on Jonah Monheim, who's trying to, solidify that center spot. Emmanuel Preyon is their best looking offensive lineman right now. You got to have more than one and, two guys playing consistently on the offensive line. So it doesn't look hard when you're trying to pick up those runs that you were talking about, Chris. It's affecting the passing game, obviously, because you're seeing a lot of shorter intermediate routes from Miller Moss to the wide receivers, because those longer routes aren't getting time to develop. You need your quarterback to have longer than 1.5 Mississippis. Typically, if you can count to Mississippi 3 times, you're giving your quarterback enough time to go through his progressions. And right now, I don't think Miller's getting enough time to go through those progressions. And obviously, the penalties, the turnovers, those have got to stop.
Eric, what were you not happy about offensively?
Getting in their own way a little bit. You had 2 early drops, one on a 3rd down that was just an unbelievable throw from Miller. The only spot you can put that ball to pick up, I think, a 3rd and 7. And then you had penalty, a false start, lining up offsides on offense, some illegal formation stuff. Just kind of play clean. That was one of in a story I wrote asking kind of 5 questions going in to the game. It was, can the USC offense just play clean, make the plays that are right in front of you. You're gonna get the Jacoby Lane sliding, one-handed, fighting off 2 defenders catch. Like they're good enough to have those plays. The Kyron Hudson catches against LSU. Can you line up right? Can you not jump early at home as an offensive lineman? And can you catch the balls that are thrown right there? And when they don't do that, it sort of compounds and piles up. And again, we've talked, they're good enough and kind of confident enough in themselves where they keep playing. And eventually they figure it out and they get going. But boy, especially early on, it's, you don't know where to point. Are you not locked in? Are you not prepped? Is it practice stuff? Is it just game, lights are on kind of thing? I think they'd all say sort of we're better than those mistakes, just the self-inflicted stuff, especially early on. I don't think you expect it all the time, but you've had a couple weeks now of seeing that. And so I think against Minnesota, that's one of those things where you want to come out. And again, you don't need a 75-yard, unbelievable pass and catch and run. Just move it down, make all the plays, and do sort of what you know how to do without getting in your own way.
And without needing
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say they looked good on offense their first drive, but they were playing on a short field. It was after that in the first half where they kind of just forgot what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, looked good, yes, but it was hard. Like first drive was hard. Everything's hard. And the thing is, if you have that 2005 offense, you can have a false start, you can have a holding penalty, and you can overcome it. If you're one of those offenses that has to grind out 10 yards, then you can't afford those things. You can't afford the mistakes. Explosive teams can sometimes afford mistakes, but this is not a very explosive offense, and they have to play cleaner. The thing that bothers me most about the offense right now is that I still think this group is going to score points. Even against Michigan, where the offensive line was a grease fire of the type you almost never see, playing against the best defensive line in the country, They still scored 24 points. The offense is going to put up some points against everybody. But there are certain things they can't do when they need to. When you're up 2 scores and you get the ball back, you need to pick up a couple first downs and run the clock out or down, right? This is the second game in a row where they couldn't do that. It's the second game in a row where they didn't really try because Lincoln Riley was not convinced they could run the football. So against Michigan, they tried running it once and then they messed around with 2 non-runs. Let's just put it that way. Here they have the same situation. They're up 10 points. I think there was 7 minutes or so left in the game. Yeah, 7:15. They throw the ball, then they run it. I knew on 2nd and 10 they're going to run the ball. The whole stadium knew they're going to run the ball. In fact, I told the guy next to me, we're going to run the ball. The halfback's going to pick up 2 yards. We're going to be in 3rd and 8. We're going to have to throw it. And that's exactly what happened. That's not good offense. I'm not sure there's much that Lincoln Riley can do about that right now. The offensive line is struggling in part because you have a lot of guys who haven't played a lot. You may or may not have a lot of guys that don't have a ton of talent. I don't know that we know that yet. I think Elijah Page is probably talented and needs experience. I think that's probably true of the right guards. Emmanuel Pradion shows that sometimes a talented guy needs some time to develop. He's playing pretty well right now. Early in the season last year, he was not playing particularly well. He needed time to develop, and I think these guys do also. They'll probably get better as the year goes on, but I don't think there's going to be a point during this year where you look at them and it's like the John Robinson lines from the late 70s, right? That's not going to happen. So that means that when USC is up at the end of the games, they're going to have to complete passes. And I hate that because, the clock stops and you risk turnovers and all that stuff, but that's just where they are. So that's the thing that bothers me most offensively at this point, but nothing we can do
Well, there
about
is,
it.
just to jump in, there is the idea that you're getting kind of like fire hosed here at the front, right? You had the LSU defensive line, you had the Michigan defensive line, 2 out of your first 3 games with, like you said, guys who have not played before. Maybe when we're looking down the road here, and it does not look like there's a switch to flip, and all of a sudden it's 5 All-Americans up there and they're mauling guys. But I still think you'd rather be here than playing Utah State and then Utah State and then Utah State and then show up and go, holy cow, we got a real team and we had no idea what we had on the offensive line. Like I think, right, withstanding that start at 3-1 with what ends up being a convincing win against Wisconsin. And now you know what they have. The guys have seen, I mean, everything at this point from all those groups that they've played against. Maybe there is sort of a launching point for them against some of these other teams. And I think that they're in a better spot having played those games and look the way they look than being able to sleepwalk through 3-0 teams and warm up stuff the first part of the season. Again, I'm not saying this is
That's
not
essentially
the
what happened
greatest
last year, right? You go to South Bend, you'd played a bunch of garbage teams, you go to South Bend, and all of a sudden you're playing in a hostile stadium. The talent level has just increased dramatically, and that offensive line completely fell apart in the first quarter of that game, which was unfortunate because the defense played really well. That was a winnable game if the offensive line doesn't just throw up all over themselves in the first few series. So I do think you're right. I mean, this is an offensive line that is battle tested. They haven't always done very well in the battles, but they held their own against LSU. They held their own against Wisconsin. It's probably well, we'll see what Wisconsin does the rest of the year, but that's probably a physical front. And they held their own against them. They didn't hold their own against Michigan particularly well, but they're not going to see a lot of Michigans the rest of the way. They're probably not going to see any. Notre Dame, I think, is solid up front. Penn State has some talent. Penn State isn't as good up front as Michigan was, and they won't have to deal with the crowd noise. Nobody has to. Go ahead.
I think USC's offensive line, I think USC in general is trying to learn how to play by big conference rules. Like, you're allowed to get away with some stuff. So I think it's time for USC's offensive line to say, all right, you know what? Let's hold on just for a second longer because they're not going to call it. It seems to be allowed. Defense is allowed to hold.
Yeah, no, it does seem more of a let the guys play conference, which I'm not complaining about. I mean, the Pac-12 officiating was infuriating, and so I'm not gonna, as long as they're calling it the same, I don't mind if they let guys play. But yeah, look, I think the offensive line will probably improve as the year goes on, assuming they can avoid injuries. You have a lot of guys who haven't played a lot. Of course, they're going to get better as the year goes on. They're probably not going to be great ever, but I don't know that USC needs them to be great. Most weeks, USC just needs them to fight to a draw, and they'll win the football game. That's going to be true. That's going to be true probably every week, and certainly true every week other than Penn State and Notre Dame. USC is just better than those teams in a lot of places. So if they can just compete, then USC will be okay. They competed against Wisconsin, so I'll take it. Okay, I will also take tickets to these remaining games, which are allegedly sold out. I gotta be honest. I think what that means is that USC doesn't have any more tickets. I don't know who does have the tickets because whoever they were, they didn't show up Saturday. But I know this: if you want to go to Penn State and see USC play the Nittany Lions for what may very well be a berth in the conference championship game, you win that game, you've got a very good shot of playing in the conference title game. If you want to go see that, and you do, go to Game Time, download the app, go do it on your PC. It's gametime.co if you do it there. There are tickets available. They're inexpensive. They're going to give you a deal. The deal is you type in on3 number 3, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. That's what I did. I got 20 bucks off. Now I can buy Mark Culkin something at the stadium, make me feel good, make him feel good. Go do it. Go to gametime.co. There are some rules that apply to that 20 bucks, but I mean, if you want to go to the game, you're going to spend money anyway. You're going to get the 20 bucks. If for whatever reason you violate one of the rules, and don't do that. You'll be fine. Go to gametime.co. Good app. All right, guys. Let's move on to the defense. I'm thrilled to death that I like talking about USC defense these days. That's so great. It seemed like forever that was painful. It seemed like forever I would be texting with Kevin Bruce in the middle of games and we would both be saying things that I can't repeat on the air. Not anymore. So let's talk about it. What was good defensively against Wisconsin? Eric, start us off.
The second half. I mean, every bit of it. I think every play in the second half, I'd rewatch again for this whole week. That's the thing. It's the adjustments and how well they can play. Look, I'm going to be honest, and this is sort of a self-tell here that I didn't look into this enough or think about it enough. When Lincoln Riley talked about, these are all new teams that you're playing against, and I think it's a bunch of different ways. We still don't know what the Corvallis of the Big Ten is for USC. We still don't really know, hey, if you get these two teams back to back, it's tougher than if you stretch those out offensively, defensively. And this is still, I mean, you're going in a little bit blind for all these teams. Now, Lynn, it was his first year in college at all last year at UCLA, and it's his first year at USC seeing these teams. But his ability to really kind of catch anything going on early and get a quick and very sufficient fix for it put in at halftime throughout the second half, and really the way the defense responds. That a lot of it is just, oh, well, we're just going to hit them harder. We're going to play harder. We're going to hit harder. We're going to be more focused. The way they come out in the second half, every game has been remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. You look at, and this is something against LSU, right? LSU didn't score a ton of points in that first half, but they threw the ball around, they moved the ball. Second half was much more difficult for them. Michigan did nothing until that one run in the second half, and Wisconsin really did next to nothing in the second half. I mean, it's easier to win football games when the other team can't do anything offensively in the second half of the game. I think we can all agree on that, and that's a nice position to be in. Mark, what did you like defensively Saturday?
So if I was going to single out a couple players, Kamari Ramsey, Anthony Lucas kind of jump out right away. As a team, you talked about it earlier in the show, Chris, tackling, they look great. They don't miss very many tackles anymore. The linebacker play has been exceptional. They get off the field on 3rd and 4th downs. I mean, talking about what USC did on offense, conversely, defensively, throughout the game, I mean, you held Wisconsin to 2 for 10 on 3rd downs. That's going to get it done every week, every single week. I mean, Coach Fickle talked about it after the game. Eric, he put up some quotes from the coach. They don't care where they're playing. They can be playing in Madison, on the road. When it's 4th and short, they expect to convert. And you don't do that against USC. So I know we're heaping a lot of praise on this defense right now, and it's deserved. I mean, what Coach Lynn has brought over to this program, it's amazing. I mean, it is night and day compared to what we saw last year to this year. I mean, in the first half of that game, the defense was doing their job. They were putting in some bad situations, but you're watching and I'm thinking, why does this team feel like 2023? And I was actually talking about the offensive side of the ball. Who knew? Who knew that we would be complaining about the offense and not the defense? So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, everything you guys mentioned, I agree with. The one thing, the fourth, you mentioned the 2 for 10 on 3rd downs. It was also 0 for 2 on 4th downs. 2 for 12 on conversions is going to get it done. I mean, that's the difference. That's the difference in the football game. USC's offense was able to stay on the field, and Wisconsin's offense never was. If you look yards per play, Wisconsin did okay. It wasn't overwhelming, but they did okay, and it was very close to USC's yards per play. But on 3rd down, USC would make a play on offense, and on 3rd down, USC would make a play on defense. That's the difference in the football game. The thing that I really liked too was the stop at the end. At the end of this season, it's not going to be a major factor in whether USC makes the playoff, whether they won 38-21 or 38-28, right? It doesn't matter. But it does, right? It matters that at the end of that game, when the game was already decided, and USC had a handful of backups in the game, that those guys refused to let them score. That means a lot. That's a defense that is going to scrap every single down, even when it doesn't matter that much. That was really nice to see. It makes me feel good about their mindset, and that's a defense that has a good mindset. So a lot of good defensively, maybe a little bit of bad. What did we see that we were troubled about defensively? I can think of a couple things. Mark?
Yeah, it's got to talk about that first half pass coverage. I mean, Coach Lynn and Coach Bell, they've talked about it. You don't want to give up explosive plays. Explosive plays to Coach Lynn is 10 yards. And here, you've got Jacoby Covington. I guess he misread the play, got a little bit off balance. And then when he bid on that first move, he didn't get his hands on the guy on the second, when he went around him for that 63-yard score. They still need to get better in the secondary a little bit. And I'm nitpicking here because they've been really good so far this year, but that's where we're at right now. You got to highlight certain plays. They also really need to get some pressure on the quarterback, the opponent's quarterback, specifically those defensive ends, the rush ends. They're just not getting there. They're getting close. They're making plays. They're getting some TFLs when they need to get those plays, but they really need to put some pressure on the quarterback, start getting that uniform dirty. And I just don't know if it hasn't been consistent. I don't think we saw that against Wisconsin. They didn't have any sacks.
Yeah, sack totals have not been good. Eric, what did you see defensively you didn't like?
It's a lot of the same stuff. The explosive. I mean, look, we're talking about 4 plays defensively over 2 weeks. Like you can pinpoint 4 plays in 2 weeks. We had 4 plays a drive to talk about defensively last year. I mean, it was that. So again, the fact that we're talking about 4 plays in 2 weeks is not crushing this defense. Like this defense has been unbelievable. The explosive plays have been explosive plus plays. And I think that's the issue, right? The USC has done unbelievably well in plays allowed of 10 or more yards. I mean, the overall numbers there are really good. I think it's 39 through 4 games, which is unreal. Too many of those are going for 50, 60 instead of, 16, 17 and keeping them there. And I think that's a key. There's two, I think, that have gone for 60 plus. I think both 63. And I think last year USC gave up like 9 total in terms of big, like explosive plays. So you're not on the right track, but there's a belief that it's not going to continue. The thing is, though, until you stop it, that's the trajectory is that it's going to keep happening. So that's the big one. Is give up a 20-yarder, a 30-yarder here and there. I think that's fine. It's an aggressive defense. You're going to get a play where a corner slips. I mean, there was one against Michigan that Michigan didn't hit. That was earlier in that drive where Greedy Vance is by himself and he just kind of trips turning, getting off the line, and Michigan's got a guy for like an 85-yard touchdown down. So you're going to have those. But when you're in that situation, Jacoby Covington on that Wisconsin receiver, you feel good about that. And so you need to win those more often than not. I think that's the big thing. Mark talked about the defensive pressure. Quarterbacks against this defense have a hard time, right? If they just stand back there with no pressure, it's still hard to really pick this secondary apart, the back seven, and find open guys and throw for 350 yards and a bunch of touchdowns. It's tough. But USC isn't making it hard enough to actually get the ball off. There's not enough batted down passes, stuff in the face, making guys move in the pocket. They got one late. Kobe Pepe was in the backfield and quarterback seemed like he had to throw it early, couldn't read anything, hits the guy, bounces off, Mason Cobb takes it back. Not enough of that kind of stuff where you're really affecting the quarterback and helping out your secondary there. I think that's something that's got to be turned up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we are nitpicking a little bit. I agree. Cardinal rule for a secondary guy is you can't let somebody get behind you. Okay, he knows that. And it was problematic in the sense that Wisconsin had played pretty well against Alabama for a while and then got blown out. They show up at the Coliseum. They're playing USC. It's a highly rated team. USC goes down and punches it in. It wouldn't surprise me if there were a lot of Wisconsin guys at that point in the back of their minds thinking, uh-oh, here we go again. And to give up the long pass and get them in the game and make them think they can compete is a mistake. You can't do it. The other thing is the 18-yard touchdown run after the muffed punt. That's a situation where you really like your defense to step up, hold them to a field goal. That sends a message, and that run was just much too easy. That being said, there's only so much we can say about the defense that is complaining, and so I'm not going to anymore. I love that group. I love them. I love them. They play hard. They play physical. They play aggressive, and
even the play that DeCarlos Nicholson gave up, he was right there. It just seemed like he fell down. He was reaching up for the ball. He was there. These guys
those are tough. Yeah, I mean those fades when it's a little bit back shoulder. Those are tough plays to make. I don't have a problem with that. That happens. Yeah, look, defense is playing well. They're going to continue to play well. It's not a fluke. These guys are good, and they're coached well. They're going to continue to play well. And because it's a Big Ten schedule, most of the teams on the schedule aren't going to score a lot of points. I'll just let you in on something, guys. Most of the teams on the schedule aren't very good offensively. So USC is going to hold a lot of these teams to 14, 17, 20 points. And if they do that, they're probably going to win all those games. So that's good news. Okay, This is a little bit harder because we have a lot of candidates. Who's your player of the game? Eric, who's your player of the game for Wisconsin?
Yeah, it is hard, right? It's hard to pick one, and I'm going to try to do that. I know you know me and assumed I was going to go with six or seven guys
Don't think
on
you
this
will.
one.
Yeah.
So I still might, honestly, if I'm being honest. Uh, Going with one, I think I got to go with Miller Moss, and it's easy. He's the guy that touched the ball the most, and so I don't feel good about that, but he is. I do like when Lincoln Riley says, what he said after the game. If you show me a tough team, I'll show you a tough quarterback. If you show me a soft team, I'll show you a soft quarterback. And I think that the way Miller plays helps this team out so much. It's not perfect. You could kind of feel him like try to yo-yo that ball back when it goes up to Zachariah Branch out there, and he's that covered. Uh, but the toughness, the ability to read a defense, to put the ball for a huge majority of the time exactly where it needs to be, to run the offense, to look somehow unflappable behind an offensive line that is sometimes just inviting guys into the backfield to go hit him. I mean, he pops up, he goes next play. And I think that sort of even keel, personality that he has, and he could light it up sometimes when he gets going. But I think he was big in this game, and I'm okay if people go other places and find other guys, but I think you start with him.
I know where Culkin's going to go. Go ahead, Mark. Say it.
See, you think you know where I'm going to go. But if look, Miller Moss is a great answer. Kobe Lane, which I think is where you think I was going with this.
Yeah. Are you not?
No, I'm not. I'm saving that one for
Okay.
you.
Okay.
He played great. I mean, that was his coming out party. Let's be honest. He showed everybody what he was capable of doing against Louisville, but he was wide receiver number one on Saturday against Wisconsin. But I'm going to go with a guy who plays special teams because Hank Pepper recovered a fumble, and that was, I think, the switch that got flipped because right after that, USC's offense said, all right, let's just take over from here. Let's score 28 points. Let's get out of here with a win. That play, I think, doesn't get enough recognition for how much impact it had on the game. So Miller Moss is the right answer. Jacoby Lane is going to be your answer. I figured, you know what, special teams have been getting kicked around a little bit. Let's find a positive. Let's get Hank Pepper. And I like saying that name. Let's give him a
Good name.
Yeah.
That was a huge play. You're right. At that point in the game, if Wisconsin doesn't fumble that, and if they put something together, we might be talking about a very different outcome. Huge play. I am going to go with Jacoby Lane, and that's not very original, but we've been talking for a long time about this guy and how special he can be. He's just starting to scratch the surface. You haven't seen the best of Jacoby Lane. And I think and you haven't seen the best of Miller Moss either. I mean, Miller's a tough kid and he's a smart kid and he's been playing really well. He still doesn't have a ton of snaps. The game has not slowed down for him the way it will. He's going to get better. The receivers are going to get better. Most of the guys that you're relying on are young guys. They haven't played a lot of snaps. And I think what you're going to see now is you're going to see that Miller Moss realizes that Jacoby Lane is a guy who can make plays that nobody else can make. And he's a mismatch on every down. And that's going to become a huge problem for defenses. It's nice to have a receiver that you can go to and you're pretty sure they're going to be open, or if it's a big body guy, you're pretty sure that even if somebody's on him, they'll pull the ball down and make a play. And I think we're going to see that from Jacoby Lane. I think we're going to see that from Deuce Robinson too, right? I mean, he also poses some of the same problems and made some big catches the other day. Having those two guys on the field at the same time is a problem for defenses because corners can't match up with them. They're too long and the catch radius is too big. But I'm gonna go with Jacoby Lane. I'm really excited about the kid, and he seems like a nice kid too. He seems like the sort of guy that you want to root for. So I will. I'm gonna root for Jacoby Lane. I don't know about you guys. You make up your own minds. Okay, so how do you feel better or worse about this football team and this football season after Wisconsin? Better or worse, Mark Culkin?
Can I straddle the fence on this one? Can I do an Eric?
Yeah, of course. You're going to get both answers like Eric will?
Both answers. So
Okay.
I'm concerned about the lackadaisical starts they've been having to start the game, specifically on offense. But again, that it gets assuaged at halftime when you see what these guys come out and do. The staff's ability just to make those adjustments on defense is going to allow them to, clean up whatever they're not doing well to start the game. So yeah, I'm a little concerned that the offense is the issue right now, and I think we know where it starts, and it starts up front. But that's my concern, is that the offense is now through 4 games, and they're still trying to find who they are.
So you feel worse?
I'm sorry?
So you feel worse?
Not worse. Concerned. That was the question.
No, the question was whether you feel better or worse. That was the
I don't
question.
feel worse. I don't feel better. I'm concerned.
All right. Mark's concerned. Eric, you concerned?
Unlike Mark, I'm gonna pick a definitive answer on this and not go straight down the middle. I
like-
am the I am the absolute teeniest, tiniest bit less concerned. Is that what Mark changed the answer to, am I more or less concerned? I feel the teeniest, tiniest bit better about this team after that game. It doesn't move the needle a whole lot, but it is one of those things where it's a new opponent. You're coming off the Michigan game. You want to see how they react. To be able to run away and have that second half, I think ultimately that's good. And every game you leave feeling good about, I think that makes you feel better about the rest of the year. It doesn't answer a ton of questions that you have for them, but again, it's you're playing real teams. You're playing real teams week in and week out. There's enough stuff out there that can trip you up and kind of get rolling the wrong way on you. And this team doesn't really have the Caleb Williams get out of jail free card on it sometimes that you had at times the last couple of years. So yeah, I think it's a win where you leave and you say, okay, we feel good about a lot of stuff in there, and I think you can. Again, it's a little tiny bit, but any win that you get on this schedule, I think makes you feel better.
Yeah, well, it's certainly nice to get a win. I think I'm gonna waffle this time. I actually feel the same. I think we know what this team is now. 4 games in, we played 3 real football teams. I think we know what they are, and for the most part, I like what I see. This is not a team that's likely to beat Alabama or Texas or Ohio State. I don't think they're that good. There are too many holes that those teams don't have. But I do think this is a team that can get in the playoff. And I think it's a team that if you're looking at anybody between, say, ranked 5 and 20 in the country, can compete with a chance to beat them. I think that's what they are. It's also a team that if the matchup is wrong, could be in trouble. Teams that have a really good pass rush are going to pose some problems for this USC team, because that's just a matchup that they're not going to be able to deal with. Teams that are pretty good defensively, USC will be all right. They'll fight to a draw. They'll make some mistakes up front, but Miller Moss will have time to make plays and they'll score points. But if you're talking about a team that has a really good pass rush, I'd be worried, even if it's not a particularly good football team, just because of how USC's offensive line struggles to protect the passer. But I feel pretty good about it. It's a defense that I trust. It's a quarterback that I trust. I like the skill position players. I think that Lincoln Riley's system will squeeze out 25 to 30 points even against the good teams. And with this defense, I think that's going to get you the win just about all the time. So I think that's who they are. And they might improve in some areas, but I think when we get to the end of the season, we'll look back and say, yep, we figured those guys out by Wisconsin. And that's okay. So now that we know who they are, what are the keys to the Minnesota game? Eric, what do you think?
Stop the run. It's another Big Ten team that cannot beat you throwing the ball. Cannot. So you stop the run. They want to run the ball. The last couple games they've lost. They weren't able to get the run going, and they lost. Now the Michigan game that came back, and we saw again some of the flaws of Michigan in that one, but they can't. Minnesota cannot score points with whatever. If USC trips and falls offensively and fumbles their way to 24 points like they did against Michigan, if USC stops the Minnesota run, they can't score enough points. So that's it. That side of the ball, show up, stop the run, and you're fine.
Sounds right. In fact, I was going to say something similar. I probably still will. Mark, what do you think?
So is it true? I think I read that Michigan played without Will Johnson or Josiah Stewart in that game as well.
That's my understanding.
Hey,
yeah, they're learning that USC plays Big Ten football too.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
USC out physical those guys and put them on the bench for the week. So
I think Stewart was just tired.
just running around our guys too many times.
Yeah, just getting around that corner over and over and over again will wear you out, man.
A little bit of what Eric said. These guys need to get off. They need to start quicker on offense. You're on the road. Let's get out. Let's score. If you're going to score on your first drive at home against Wisconsin, do it on the road against Minnesota. And again, stop them from running the ball. They might not have a prolific passing game. They can throw the ball. They got a couple of guys on the outside. One guy in particular who made, I think, one of the highlight catches of the weekend. Michigan guy was literally hanging on his back, and he somehow was able to spin, catch it with one hand, and bring it in for the touchdown. It was an amazing catch. Minnesota, they're going to try and out-tough you. They're going to try and out-physical you. So as long as USC continues to do what they're doing on defense, they're going to be just fine. Stop the run. Don't give up any explosive plays like you did against Michigan in the run game. And I think they'll be fine. Just start quicker on offense. Stop putting yourself on a hole. So you have to make those dramatic adjustments at halftime that really just kind of pops out. Oh, why did they play this well in the last 30 minutes? And they couldn't do it in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah. Minnesota has a quarterback that I think they expected would really help their passing offense. They went and got an FCS All-American guy. I'm assuming he's somebody, if you leave people open, he's going to be able to hit them, right? You don't become an All-American at any level unless you do that. But they haven't been very good on offense. They played 3 real football teams in their games. They've lost all 3, and they haven't scored very many in any. PJ Fleck was talking about how they've struggled to stop the run and they need to be better. This probably isn't the right week to get better on that, because I think USC is going to be able to stop the run and force them to throw. And if Minnesota becomes one-dimensional, it's hard to imagine Minnesota scoring more than 17 points in the game, right? They've struggled to score that many against all the normal teams they play, not the 2 bottom feeders, but just your 3 teams from big conferences. They've struggled to move the ball. They've struggled to score points. So I think the defense will show up. You don't want to give them cheap points. If you make Minnesota earn their points, they're not going to get very many. Don't give them cheap points. That's true defensively. It's true on special teams. Because if you can avoid that, I don't think Minnesota has the type of defense that's going to completely shut USC down. They will make plays. They're going to get it. They're going to get some hits on Miller Moss. They're going to do some things because they're not inept defensively, and USC's offensive line is really inconsistent. So Minnesota will make some plays. still, it's hard to imagine USC not scoring in the high 20s at least in this game. And if USC doesn't give up cheap touchdowns, no way in the world Minnesota's going to do that. They're just not good enough offensively to put up 4 touchdowns on Lynn's defense. They're just not. So this is Minnesota's an okay team. This is a very winnable game. I would be very surprised if USC didn't win it. And the way that they wouldn't win it is if they put the ball on the carpet all over the place, like they did in the first half last week. You do that, you get in trouble.
I haven't checked the line. What's the opening line on this game, Eric? Chris?
I think it's 9. I've seen 8.5, 9, and 9.5. All those numbers seem reasonable to me because it's hard to go with a bigger number than that when you don't trust USC's offense to play consistently. But and I think the over/under was 40. I mean, it was a tiny number. I'll have to go look. I probably got that wrong, but it was maybe 50. It was a relatively small number. I don't think anybody expects Minnesota is going to score a lot of points. I know I don't. This is a game USC should win. And it sets up a monster game after that. Okay, so let's do our predictions. Let's expand it a little bit. We have a few other big games that are worth talking about. So let's get predictions on all of them. We'll just go down the line. First, Mizzou at A&M. Missouri finally plays a football team with a pulse. I mean, that's probably the best way to describe A&M football anyway. But Missouri finally plays one. They've been ranked high all season. They haven't done anything. Are they going to go into that stadium with that crowd and all that weird stuff that they do and get a win? Eric McKinney, who wins that game? What kind of score do you see?
I gotta pick a score. Missouri. I'm gonna go Missouri. That's as much attention as I can pay to games outside of USC games during
fair.
just the regular weekend.
McKinney spends all his time studying USC football. He doesn't have time for this nonsense. What about you, Culkin? I know you're not working hard. What do you think?
Yeah, I was able to do enough research to see that Missouri needed a couple of overtimes against Vanderbilt to beat them. If you need extra time to beat Vanderbilt, as wonky as a place as Kyle Field is, College Station, Missouri might have some challenges, and I think Texas A&M is going to pull the upset.
Yeah, I'm going with A&M also. It's always a dangerous thing to do because just when you think A&M might do something right, they usually wet the bed. But I'm not convinced that Mizzou's any good. I think they're pretty good defensively. They have a good receiver, and I don't think they have anything else. This is going to be a low-scoring game. A&M's going to beat them 17-13. Take that to the bank. Okay. Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss team still upset over the loss to Kentucky. Goes to South Carolina, tough place to play. Not a bad football team. Mark Holkin, who wins it?
Yeah, like you just said, which South Carolina team shows up? Because if the one shows up that almost knocked off LSU, Kiffin might be taking 2 losses in a row.
That South Carolina team also absolutely annihilated Kentucky. Destroyed.
And Kentucky went toe-to-toe with Georgia. So I know we're trying to play that whole, connect the dots thing. I just think on the road, stadium's going to be pretty amped up. Lane Kiffin, I think those guys have long memories. Lane Kiffin once called their best wide receiver a gas pumper, Alshon Jeffrey. So we'll see. I'm going to go with South Carolina, home team.
South Carolina is going to do it for Alshon Jeffrey. All right, Eric, what do you think?
I liked going with Ole Miss because Lane got his one game he has really no business losing and then losing it, and so you always assume he's going to bounce back after that. The South Carolina was one of those teams coming into the year where everybody kind of thought, hey, watch out for that program. And then they had, I think, Old Dominion out the gate and really struggled with them, and everybody wrote them off. I think at home, South Carolina in this one.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning that direction too. Ole Miss will bounce back, and I think they'll play well. And I like Jackson Dart. I think Kiffin's a pretty good football coach, but playing on the road is not easy. And South Carolina, I think, is a pretty good football team. I'm going to go with the Gamecocks. who was it? It was yeah, Old Dominion. They beat Old Dominion 23-19. That's not great. I'll concede that's not great. But then they blew out Kentucky. They had LSU on the ropes. They blew out Akron, but of course, everybody blows out Akron. I'm going South Carolina. I think it's going to be close, somewhere in the high 20s probably. How about this one? Michigan, Washington. Interestingly enough, this Washington team is actually favored by about a field goal in this one. What do you think, Mark? Who wins this?
Yeah, go Huskies. This is Michigan's first time on the road all season.
Never done it before. Never done it before.
I mean, you're going into your 6th game of the year and you're finally getting on an airplane? Give me a break. Yeah, I got Washington. That was a tough loss they took over the weekend, and they're going to come home and they're going to. I think Michigan is going to be fully exposed for their lack of offense. It'll be a tight game, don't get me wrong. It'll be close. Michigan will play them tough defensively, but I think at home, Washington will find a way to get that field goal win.
All right.
Not US, it doesn't benefit USC, but no, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. They're probably not going to be too focused on us. What do you think, Eric? Who's winning this one?
I mean, what Washington lost because they couldn't stop the run against Rutgers. It's not great when you've got Michigan coming in. I mean, when you go on the road, I get it. They haven't done it this year. When you go on the road, you pack your run game and you pack your defense. That's all Michigan had. That's their full suitcase. They can't. There's nothing else for them to pack. So that's what they're going to take. And I don't think it's that much of a problem for them against Washington. I think Michigan wins.
And despite all that, Washington, they had a chance to win that game in New Jersey.
They had a chance to beat Rutgers. That's what we're. I mean, okay, they
Rutgers
did.
might have the best running game in the conference.
They don't. All right.
Eric, are you going to leave me hanging like this when we had this conversation during the USC game?
I think that Rutgers back is good. I would rather play defense against that Rutgers offense than the Rutgers rush game than the Michigan run game.
Yeah, I would, or the Ohio State run game, or the Oregon run game, or for that matter, the Penn State run game. Rutgers is Rutgers. Look, here's the problem for Washington. They're not very good. They lost to Washington State. They scored 19 points at home. They scored 24 points at home against Northwestern. That's not good. They scored 18 on the road against Rutgers. Washington's offense is going to get dominated. Now, Michigan's probably not going to score very many points because Michigan can't score very many points. But Michigan probably wins this thing 20-7. I don't understand why Washington's favored to beat anybody in light of their offensive ineptitude. Okay, the big one. Are you ready, fellas? Who wants to go first on this one? I know how sensitive you are if the other guy says something that you wanted to say, so I don't want to, Nobody wants to volunteer? You want to go first? Okay, Mark wants to go first. Mark, USC, Minnesota. Tell me what's going to happen. Give me a score.
I think this is the big passing offense game for USC. You're going to get 150 yards on the ground. You're going to get 320 or so through the air. And I think USC wins this game 37-13.
Eric?
I took Eric's answer.
I got I feel like all the right. I didn't count in the defensive score. I think I said 31-10 against Wisconsin. I didn't give them the defensive score, and I didn't give the muff punt and that kind of stuff. So I feel pretty good that it's not going to happen. I'm going to go back that same kind of area, 31 for SC and 13 Minnesota, 31-13.
Those are both good predictions. I'm going 34-17 Trojans. I don't think Minnesota is going to be able to run the ball consistently. They're going to be one-dimensional. And being one-dimensional, having only a passing game against Danton Lynn's defense is a problem. He's going to confuse this guy. There are enough playmakers in that secondary. They're going to make some plays. Minnesota will make some plays defensively, like I said, because everybody's going to make some plays against USC defensively. This is a very different USC offense. But the Trojans will get enough. I think 34-17 is probably the final. It's going to be comfortable enough that the USC is going to feel good about themselves and set up a absolute monster matchup the week after that. Okay, guys, anything else you want to say before we sign off? Nothing?
That's
Jeez,
it. Get to
guys.
WeAreSC. All your USC Minnesota preview stuff.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, McKinney said it earlier. He spends all of his time thinking about USC football. You know he's putting out good content. You know it. Culkin puts out good content. I read it all the time.
We'll have that money.
I'll put out something at some point. I don't know. I don't know if I'd pay for it, but if you're paying anyway, you might as well read what I give you. Okay. All right. I guess we're done. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week to recap this one and talk about the game that's going to decide whether USC goes into the playoff. Until then, fight on, everybody.